All right. So completing the square is definitely not a technique that you would just choose. Okay, that's not going to be your, at least I doubt it. It's not going to be your go-to way of solving something. You're still doing the same thing. You're still trying to solve where it crosses the x-axis. So you could graph it, you could factor it, or you could complete the square. But we got to do a little background on completing the square first. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make something a perfect trinomial. Okay, which means it's very important that I have a certain number right there. So let's say I don't know what that number is to be able to complete the square. My technique is this, and at first this is going to seem weird, but then I think it's going to fall into place, okay? I'm going to take half of the 14. What's half of 14?
7.
I'm going to square it. What's 7 squared? 49. Once it looks like that, then I can quickly factor it. And the way that I quickly factor it, it's going to be a parenthesis squared. I'm going to take the square root of that, I'm going to take the square root of that, and I'm going to take that sign. That perfect trinomial factors into that. It factors into x plus 7 times x plus 7, which is x plus 7 squared. That is the foundation behind completing the square. Let's say I have x squared minus 16x, and I want to know what goes there. What's going to go right there?
64.
It's going to be 64. Half of 16, I don't pay any attention to that sign. Okay, half of 16 is 8. 8 squared is 64. Now I'm going to factor it. The technique's the same every time. Square root of this, square root of that, this sign. Okay, just kind of a shortcut. Okay, so that's the foundation of it, okay, is that you're trying to make these into things that are perfect trinomials, so you can factor. So, going forward here, let's say I've got something like this. And it says, solve by completing the square. I'm making sure that this is recording. It is. All right. I don't want to bring that 40 over, because that's going to totally mess up my system, because that is not half of 6 squared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a blank there. But if I put a blank on that side, I got to put a blank on that side. All right, so I need to make this side into a perfect trinomial. So what's going to go in that blank?
9.
9. Because half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. If 9 goes into that blank, then 9 has to go into that blank. I factor this, square root. Now don't forget, it's got a squared on it, okay? This sign. So far so good? What's on the other side?
49.
49. How do I get rid of that squared? Because I want to solve for this x. Take the square root of it. So you've been here, done this before, okay? Square root here, square root here. On this side, what do I have?
X minus 3.
X minus 3. What do I have on this side?
7.
But this is where it becomes very important that you remember that it's plus or minus 7. Because negative 7 times negative 7 is also 49. So now I have two problems. I have x minus 3 equals positive 7. X minus 3 equals negative 7. You with me so far? Okay, I'm going to add 7, or add 3, and I'm going to get 10. I'm going to add 3, and I'm going to get negative 4. There's my two solutions. If I had graphed it, I would have found that it crossed at 10 and crossed at negative 4. If I had factored it, those would have been my two answers. But I solved it by completing the square. Okay, just a third way to do the exact same thing we've been doing. Okay, let's do another one. It's pretty easy, right? Sometimes they're not all quite that easy, because if I have something in front of this besides 1, I got to get rid of it. All right, so then you'd have to divide everything by that to get rid of it. So they can complicate it. I think that's probably why Most people don't choose that way. All right, let's say I have this. We'll do another easy one and then we'll do a harder one. All right, what am I going to do? Talk me through it.
Add a 9 to both sides.
Okay, I am. I'm going to, now, if it helps, put the blanks. Now, obviously, when I was saying blanks, you don't have to do that way, but that sometimes helps you remember that what you do to one side, you have to do the other side. So you don't have to put the blanks there. As Joseph said, I have to add a 9 there. Don't just add the 9 to one side. That's totally illegal. You cannot do it. You're breaking math law. Remember, you have to keep everything fair. Okay, so I have to add the 9 there as well. What does this factor into?
X plus 3.
X plus 3, good. What's it equal to?
25.
25. Okay. Now, so far it's been great. Okay, I haven't had any square roots on the bottom. My square roots have come out whole. As you might well imagine, they don't all work that way. Okay, got to take the square root of both sides. So I get x plus 3 equals what? Plus or minus 5. So then I have x plus 3 equals 5. X plus 3 equals negative 5. When I subtract, I get a 2. When I subtract here, I get a negative 8. So those are my solutions. All right, let's do one. We're good right now, right? Okay, let's complicate. The technique stays the same. What gets complicated are the numbers, okay? Okay, now we want to leave them as fractions. Okay, I don't want to be messing with decimals here. We're going to leave fractions here. That 24 is a problem. It's in the way. How am I going to get rid of it? It's going over the other side. Okay, x squared plus 11x plus blank equals negative 24 plus blank. What is half of 11? Fractions, remember? Half of 11 in a fraction form. Oh, please, guys. Okay, 11 over 2. Half of 11, I'm dividing it by 2. Okay, I'm going to square that. When I square that, what do I get?
22 over 2. Or 4. 22
Not 22.
Oh, 121 over
121. Good. Over 4. What I do there, I'm going to do there. Okay. This side, relatively easy. Okay. Square root. That sign. Square root of that, of course, is 11 over 2 because that's what I squared. The other side, what I would recommend to you is pick up your calculator, do it on your calculator, keep the 121 over 4 in parentheses, but then you're going to convert it back to fractions, and you're going to understand why in a minute. Is that what you got? Okay. Now, I'm going to take the square root of both sides, right? So I have x plus 11 over 2 equals what? 5 over 2. Much easier if you'll leave it as fractions. Okay, so then I have two problems. X plus 11 over 2 equals 5 over 2. And x plus 11 over 2 equals negative 5 over 2. If I subtract that, I'm going to get a negative 6 over 2 or a negative 3. That's one of my answers. If I subtract this one, I'm going to get a negative 16 over 2 or a negative 8. Okay? Now, do not leave a square root on the bottom. Okay, you have to get rid of the square root on the bottom the way that you know how to do it. All right, let's do another one that's even more complicated. So far, you with me though, right? Same technique all the way through. Sure is squeaking. Must be the colder weather. All right, 4x squared minus 5x minus 21 equals 0. And the instructions say solve by completing the square. Ew, I don't really want to do that. Well, what I can do is I can divide everything by 4 because I got to get rid of that 4 to begin with. So this becomes x squared minus 5 over 4x minus 21 over 4 equals 0. Okay, so far so good? I'm going to take the 21 over 4 to the other side, and I'm going to leave a blank. So far, the only thing that I've added is that I had to divide everything by that 4. All right, now, don't let this throw you off. What is half of 5 over 4?
2/5.
I'm going to give you a hint, okay? I'm going to show you a way that is so easy to do this. Take the bottom number and multiply it by 2. So half of 5/4 is 5/8. Works every time, okay? Because you're dividing by 2, so you invert and multiply. So then when I square that, what am I going to get over there?
25 over 64.
There you go. What I do to one side, do to the other side, okay? Now, it sometimes benefits you to write out what half of it is because in your mind, the mistake that's made often is when you take half of it, you just put that right there and you never square it. When it's a fraction, for some reason that works like that. Okay, x minus 5 over 8, right? Is that what you get on that side? Right? You with me? Okay, on the other side, again, I would take my calculator, but make sure you put your fractions inside parentheses. Then convert it back, and I get 361 over 64, right? All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Now 361, I'm trying to think whether anything would go into that. We know 2 won't, we know 3 won't, we know 4 won't, 5 won't, 6 won't, 7, I don't think 7 can.
It's 19.
Is it 19? Oh, is that the square root of it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's an even square root?
Yeah.
No kidding. Okay, well that makes life easier. Okay, we're going to take the square root of both sides. So I have x minus 8, or x minus 5 over 8. And according to Joseph, that's 19 over 8. Okay? And therefore I have x minus 5 over 8 equals positive 19 over 8. X minus 5 over 8 equals negative 19 over 8. I'm going to add that, so I'm going to get x is equal to 24 over 8, which is 3. I'm going to add that, so x is going to equal negative 14 over 8, but you got to reduce it to lowest terms by dividing the top and the bottom by 2, and I'm going to get a negative 7/4. We good? Okay. Just one little technique. That's all you're doing all the way through it. I think I'm going to, oh, I forgot. You can use eyes now. Let's do one that has eyes on it, and then I'll give you your homework. Okay? I might give you one to try before you do your homework. All right, what am I going to do?
Move the 20 over.
I'm going to move the 20 over. It is in my way. When I move it over, I get a negative 20. All right, what's going to go on the blank?
16.
16.
It's going to be 16 because I'm going to take half of the 8, right? If I add 16 there, I'm going to add 16 there. So I have x plus 4 squared is equal to negative 4. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, right? So I take the square root, I get x plus 4 equals, what's that equal to?
2i.
2i. Okay, everybody good with that? You remember that from the other chapter? Okay, just real quick, let me refresh your memory. Square root of negative 4 is the same thing as saying the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. Square root of negative 1 is I. Square root of 4 is 2. So that's why it's 2I. Okay, now, if you get that as an answer, you can finish it by just doing this. You can leave it just like that. Okay, that's 2 answers. Understand that's 2 spots. That's negative 4 plus 2I and negative 4 minus 2I. Okay? Now, this is a little something extra for nothing. Okay? You don't get that this year in this class. If I went to graph that, that is going to graph a parabola that never crosses the x-axis, but it still has 2 solutions. I know it has 2 solutions because it has a 2 up here. Okay? Those 2 values, if I plug those back in for x, it's going to give me a 0. But if I were to look at it as a parabola, it never crosses the x-axis. It still has 2 solutions, it just doesn't have 2 zeros. Okay? That's something later on. All right. Let's see what time it is. Actually, I'll just go ahead and give you your homework. Okay? Now remember, you do not have class tomorrow. So page 351. Let's do 16 through 34 even. Now the top part, all it's asking for is it's just asking you to complete the square. It's asking for what the value of C would be to make it a perfect trinomial. All you have to do is complete the blank, if you will. And you got about 8 minutes.